Good evening, folks. It is 6 o'clock, and I think we are just waiting for a few more members of the panel to join us. But in the meantime, I will be pasting the proposed agenda into the chat if folks want to take a look at that. And tonight, Office of Racial Equity Director Susanna Davis will be facilitating the meeting, but I'll hold the reins until Susanna gets here. Hey, Derek.
I'm here.
Hey, Susanna.
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Susanna.
I think we need 7 members. We're at 5. We have Judge Tebow has joined us as the judiciary's representative. Welcome.
Oh, great. Hi, Judge Tebow.
Good evening.
I think we just need one more. Is that right? Hi, everyone. Hi, Susanna. How many people do we need for a quorum? I forget.
7.
Seven.
We're at 13 members of the panel.
Very good. Hi, Judge Tebow. Good to see you.
You too, Rebecca. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good. So we have 5. I can't tell if my screen is falling off. We have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And just a heads up, you guys, if I freeze or something, give me like 5 minutes. I might just have to drop off and reconnect. I'm calling from a remote place in Northern California, and I think this connectivity bandwidth is sketchy. but I'm here right now, which is great.
I may suggest, Susanna, that we could start at least with the informational parts of the meeting, just so that folks aren't sitting here too long, and hopefully get to the point of, before we review the minute, we can hold off on reviewing the minutes as well.
That sounds good. Good evening, everybody. Today's October 14th. This is the meeting of the Racial Disparities in the Criminal and Juvenile Justice Systems Advisory Panel. I'm your guest host for the night. And I think we can just start by, I can't even remember if we do this at every meeting, and I should know because I've been doing this for years, but let's just go around and identify ourselves, because I think the law says we have to. And I'll begin. I'm Susanna Davis. I'm representing the Office of Racial Equity, and I am a member of the panel, and I will send it over to Todd.
Thank you, Susanna. Todd Delos, he, him pronouns. I am a member of the panel and the designee of the Attorney General. Derek.
Hi, good evening, Derek. Me, definite he, him pronouns. I'm here as the designee to the Commissioner of the Department of Corrections as a panel member. Thank you. I'll turn that over to Lisa.
Thanks, Derek. Good evening. Lisa Ryan, she, her pronouns. I'm also a member of the panel. I am representing the Vermont Criminal Justice Council, which oversees the Vermont Police Academy. I'll pass it to Rory.
All right, good evening. I'm Judge Rory Tebow, representative from the judiciary, and he and him pronouns, please. Thank you.
And Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. Rebecca Turner, panel member, representative from the Office of the Defender General. Let's see, who is Brianna Sheehan? Oh, to you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Brianna Sheehan. I am a representative from the Racial Justice Statistics Advisory Council. I'm taking Grace's place tonight because she is sick with a migraine. And I'll pass it to Laura.
Free. Hi, I'm Laura Carter. I am an analyst in the Division of Racial Justice Statistics in the Office of Racial Equity. I am not a panel member. I'm just here for fun. Representative Arsenal, if you'd like to go next.
Thank you, Laura. I'm Angela Arsenault, representative from Williston, a member of House Judiciary, and not a member of the panel, also here, I think, as Laura said, for fun. Pass it to Felicia.
Hi, I'm Felicia Laborde. I'm a community activist, and I'm also a student at Vermont State University. and I'm here observing. I am not a member of the panel. And
All right, thanks for, oh, I'm sorry.
I think that's everybody.
Yeah, thank you for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started. We won't do any votes or decisions until we get a quorum, but for now, let's chit chat about racial disparities. So first, there's an agenda in the chat. People want to take a look at it and let us know if you have anything that needs to be added or otherwise changed. And I'll say it out loud for anybody who can't look at it right now. We're beginning with welcome. We're then going to review the agenda, doing a little bit of housekeeping, reviewing and approving minutes pending getting quorum, then hearing an update from the Racial Justice Statistics Advisory Council, hearing a little bit about the membership nomination form. We'll hear from the legislative subcommittee. We'll talk about the biennial report, and we'll talk about survey results for our potential in-person meeting, handle some public comment, and then reserve some time to talk about personnel issues that may be impacting the RDAP. Any changes to that? Okay. And let's get started. Todd, I'm going to ask you to usher us into some housekeeping things.
The only housekeeping item I have is actually the review of the minutes. So I'm happy to take edits on that, but it might make sense when we have a quorum. I did, just per Laura's suggestion, send an email out to the panel members, reminding them that we're meeting.
Great. Thanks, Todd. And for those who want to take a look at it, you have a hard copy in your inboxes dated 2:30 p.m. on Monday that was sent by Todd. So those are the minutes. Thanks, Lisa. I'm seeing also that you messaged some other members. Okay, let's hear from the RJSAC next. Bree, if you want to take it away.
Absolutely. So hello again, everybody. I also didn't share in my introduction. I am also the co-chair of the RJSAC along with Grace. I am here, and I sit on that council as a representative of the Vermont Commission on Native American Affairs and the community of Vermont. So not a ton of updates to give you all today. The major ones I think are, we are beginning to think about what our annual report to the legislature will look like. And some of our conversations around that have, for the past, as they have for kind of the past year, been around, what is our role? What role do we play in this work in relationship to the RDAP and in relationship to the division? So part of that conversation too, and what we wanted to bring to you all tonight was just kind of a as formal or as informal as maybe useful kind of like conversation and touch base amongst between RDAP and the division and the RJSAC. We know that, the RDAP is in kind of a moment of transition themselves. So we thought it might be an interesting time for us to kind of all come together at the same table and say, how do we all actually work in relationship to one another? I think that would be helpful for us on the council to kind of understand where we sit in relationship to you all and to the division, and also how we can best support ourselves, or not ourselves, but support one another throughout this work, especially right now when I think it's really important to, divide and conquer and do as much as we can to provide a united front. So I wanted to offer that. I'm happy to reach out to Todd or Susanna or whoever may be best to set up those conversations if that feels of interest. But yeah, I just wanted to give that, and if that feels helpful or useful, take it as you see fit.
Thanks, Brianna. Anybody from the RDAP want to add to that or respond at all? Or...
Happy to coordinate with you, Brianna, on any coordination.
Sounds great. I'll send you an email and we can go from there.
Great.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. And I'm going to turn my camera off, but I'll be here.
Thanks. All right, next up is a discussion about the membership nomination form. So you all will remember that the last couple of meetings we've talked about refreshing, or I shouldn't say refreshing, filling some vacancies on our panel, and we created a nomination form that can be used to help us identify potential members. That form is open, it has been open, and we are looking for the members to share it out as widely as possible so that we can solicit nominations for members. Right now, we have one response, and it was done by a member of my staff, so it doesn't count no matter how much we value them. So again, we will put the link in the chat. Please do share it out, and I think it might be worth a quick conversation with this group about, do we need to adjust our timeline? What do we see as an appropriate deadline for getting back nominations?
Susanna, this is Rebecca. I might have missed it. Did you say we have had 0 nominations so far?
We have one.
Okay.
I think it's a function of the form not actually getting out there widely. So one thing I actually would like to do, I know I just put a question on the table and I would like us to address it, but I also would love us if we would take a few minutes in this meeting now and take the liberty to go ahead and share that form out while we're here.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Before we do that, do we think that we want to adjust any of the timing that we've set for ourselves? And I'm just pulling it up here so that I can tell you what kind of deadlines we put. It looks like we said the deadline to submit names is October 15th at noon, which is tomorrow. So how do we, go ahead, Todd.
I was just going to say, I would suggest we push it out a month. Our next meeting is on the 18th of November, and I think it would make sense to try and stretch it a little bit more.
Yes, I'd agree with that suggestion. And we may find we need more time. I'm not quite sure where we're at if we extend it out next month and we still have the same number of nominations. And how many openings do we currently have? Yeah.
3.
So it seems like we just will have to. The question of whether or not we extend may answer itself if we don't get enough nominations.
Okay. So if our next meeting is November 18th, then maybe we can set a deadline for that month. I don't know if it's too late, but maybe like the Monday right before that meeting, so that then we can have, we can at least come to the group with a quick summary of what we got back. Or do you think that we would need more time to actually look at and review them? I think it makes sense for the group to do that, right?
I think, what are you thinking, November 11th, Susanna? Is that the date?
Oh
wait, no, that's our next. Go ahead.
17.
And we're meeting on the 18th, right?
Yeah, I'm taking a cue from our staff who say they don't like Friday deadlines when we can just give people the weekend. So if we say due by Monday, then it gives us the afternoon and next day to quickly look at it, collate, and come back to this group with a summary. Is that unreasonable? You would tell me, right?
Yes, we would tell you, or I would tell you. I think that's entirely reasonable.
Okay. So I'm going to, okay, so the date is officially changed in the nomination form. I'm going to give you a link now, and I'm going to ask that we just take 5 minutes and right now, go off camera and send it out to people. So, link. And there's a healthy blurb at the top of this form that gives the background and purpose. So if you're sharing it out to people, you don't have to do a whole lot of setting the table in your message, but just in case you'd like to, I'm also pasting that into this chat here if you just want to copy paste. Oh, look, it's too many characters. I'm gonna get rid of this. Anything.
If I may,
Go ahead.
briefly, Susanna, so Dan's here, so we now at 6:21 have a forum.
Oh, great, thank you. Welcome, Dan. We are just talking about our membership nomination form. And what we are doing is we're about to take a few minutes here and send it out to our people in our networks. So the link is in the chat, and I'm just doing a little copy paste in case you all want to put that in your message. Okay. You all have everything you need. Let's take 5 minutes, send this out, and then come back. All right, we're just coming up on our 5 minutes. So please follow the sound of my voice back to this meeting. And if you are still typing or clicking, then please conclude. All right, thank you all. Thanks for the assist. I know that I am one of the 2 entities required to do this billing, so this is a big help for me, and I appreciate you helping us to get this out. We really want to get a very broad cross-section and tap into communities and people in Vermont who are eager and willing to participate and to serve, but who just have not had a direct line to government. All right. Now that we have a quorum, I would like to go back and review and approve our meeting minutes from September 9th. So again, you all got an email with a copy of those minutes on Monday afternoon. If you have had a chance to review them and would like to make a motion to act on them or suggest edits, thank you, Todd, for sharing your screen.
Happy to scroll through them, but I know that's not the best way for people to review minutes. So hopefully folks have had a chance to take a glance at them.
Todd, Susanna, I just wanted to make, because we're moving into reviewing and our first voting matter for the panel tonight, but I just want to make sure there's a record that we don't seem to have any community members of our panel present tonight. We did just barely get a quorum, but I think it's extraordinarily noteworthy that we don't have any tonight. I'm not sure I recall an RDAP meeting ever not having at least one community member at the monthly meeting. And I've been on RDAP since its inception. And I just want to make sure there's a record of that in our minutes. I'm sure we can discuss that. I find it highly disturbing. We do have a quorum, so can technically go forward with business, but RDAP has never gone forward with any business without any panel member from the community not here.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. I think that's extremely fair and does, in light of a lot of unexpected changes happening at the state level, I think it's extremely worth noting.
We certainly don't know why people aren't here tonight, but the coincidence, it does seem an awful coincidence. But yes, I think we have places in our agenda to talk about it. I definitely want to make sure, though, that we as a group sort of give space and sort of touch down on that topic generally, to make sure that next month we don't have a repeat issue and this coincides with our problem of getting nominations or people interested to fill our vacancies. But with that, I would motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Right. Motion by Rebecca, second by Lisa. Any discussion? All in favor, aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions, please say abstain.
Abstain.
Thank you, Jasibo. All right, by majority, minutes are passed from September 9th. Thank you all. Next up, it looks like we are up to an update from our legislative subcommittee. Rebecca, you're listed as the person updating us, so I'll invite you to share what's going on.
Okay, great. This subcommittee was, we had a lot of people working on this last month. Let's see if I can remember everyone. They're actually mostly here. Derek and Susanna, Laura, Representative Arsenault, Lisa, Todd. Is there someone else I'm missing? I think that's everyone. So we met as per indicated at our last meeting to try to come up with more specific language for RDAP's proposal of an equity impact assessment tool legislation for the legislature to consider next session. We're barreling towards this November drafting submission deadline that I understand we're facing. We as a subcommittee met and pooled together what we had gathered. We all had homework and we met to share where we were at. The plan after that meeting was to then put a document together, a shared document of something we could, essentially a rough draft to share with this panel to then get it finalized. And the idea would be not to provide actual draft legislation, proposed bill, but ideas. And where we got to was sharing that shared document with the subcommittee members the past few days. I just looked at it and saw that everyone on the committee had had a chance to weigh in, but a lot of the comments were more questions. So that's the update. My takeaway of where we're at right now is that the subcommittee should get together one more time. We certainly didn't have enough time for this meeting to share that shared document with this group, but it also seems maybe not quite ready for that. I do anticipate though, and the other subcommittee members should share their insight, but I think we could be ready to share that final draft that if RDAP agrees to it, we could forward on to the legislature and Leg Council to then take that and use that as a model to build something for a bill for next session. Does that sound right? Or please, anyone else on that subcommittee chime in?
Yes, that all sounds right.
I don't know if it makes sense to go through what we've talked about or whether we should just shelve that until next month. I'll leave that to the...
We have a couple of people present who were not part of those discussions, so it might be helpful just to give a broad strokes summary of what you all talked about.
Okay, great. Let's see. I'm going to use the working draft right now to do that. And I just pulled up the minutes instead. If someone else has that shared document handy and wants to jump in to give a summary, I really welcome it. I'm having trouble finding it.
I have it pulled up. I don't know if it would be helpful. I was thinking maybe just reading like kind of our big subheadings of the things that we were thinking about.
Perfect.
So the impact assessment tool should have universal scope and mandate to address inequities in the criminal and juvenile justice system. So that kind of expands on, we want to open this as broadly as possible, but if we're only allowed to pilot it, or if we end up doing a pilot, we would do that in the criminal legal space. The second big umbrella topic we have is the purpose of the impact assessment tool is to enhance institutional accountability and integrity. Part of that we're borrowing from Washington, D.C., which, as a related side note, we did reach out to the Council Office of Racial Equity, which was established, I think, in 2021 in Washington, D.C. to do essentially this work. So we're kind of leaning on their expertise. And Haven't heard back about coordinating a meeting, but hoping to be able to do that at some point. But borrowing a lot from them in this process. The next bigger umbrella point is the impact assessment tool should facilitate equity lens thinking. Basically encouraging the stakeholder engagement and consideration of underrepresented communities. And then we have like appendices that says similar tools currently in place, again, mentioning Washington, D.C., Colorado, and New Jersey. And I think we also talked a little bit about California and other jurisdictions like that. Is there more? Do you want me to expand on, Rebecca, or is that?
Oh, that was great. Does anyone on the panel have any questions for us? We'll otherwise keep going at it and hopefully have that final draft to share ahead of our meeting and have a vote on it. That makes sense. Okay, I think that's good. Todd, Susanna, I think could move on to the next agenda.
Great, thank you. Next up is a discussion of our IND.
So we've talked about this last month. Eitan sort of presented the proposal that he had discussed in June, and then again, as I said, in the September meeting. We have by statute, a requirement to submit a report every 2 years. Our last report was submitted in 2024, so 2026 would be a reporting year. And what we've discussed in previous meetings is basically a shortened version of the report, really a cover letter that just directs attention to the legislature on the recommendations that RDAP made in 2024 that have yet to get a legislative hearing or much movement from the legislature. And not having been on the panel for that process, I don't have a lot of further context except to say that I did look through the report, and I'm happy to talk a little bit about my understanding of both the recommendations and legislative action around it, but I'm happy to follow where the group wants to go. In brief, I think the only recommendation I could find that the legislature has acted on, let me see if I can pull this off without. Sorry, I'm just trying not to have the wrong window pop up. I may not succeed at this at all, as it turns out. So the main recommendation I found that it appeared that the legislature had acted on is raising the minimum age of juvenile court jurisdiction in Vermont, which was the first recommendation. There were 3 sections to the report: recommendations on the juvenile justice system. And please, folks who were here, correct me. This is me operating from 2 dimensions on the paper of the report, as opposed to anything more fulsome, which, you know, there are a number of folks who served leading up to the 2024 report. So the 3 sections were recommendations from the Juvenile Justice System Subcommittee, recommendations from the Community Safety Reports Subcommittee, and then recommendations from the Second Look Subcommittee. And in reviewing those, it appeared to me that the only one that had been enacted, which happened just last session, Act 4, H2, was raising the minimum age from 10 to 12. So that moved forward. But beyond that, and I won't walk everybody through, in part because I can't seem to figure out how to share my screen, the additional recommendations, which included race and ethnicity data in the Vermont Judiciary Database, ensuring that's being collected, using best practices for gathering that data, especially incidents of arrest with youth. And then so that was for the juvenile justice. I don't know, Susanna, if it's helpful to walk through all of them, but I think the sort of recommendation on the table would be drafting a short statement from RDAP that says the 2024 report still holds as some of the most important recommendations in this area. You know, we recognize movement has taken place on one of those, and we continue to encourage and advocate for the legislature to act on the other ones. I would reflect that they're not all unanimous and didn't have complete support from all of RDAP. I think there are a number of non-consensus items in there, especially around second look. So, you know, it would take a little bit of drafting to make sure we reflect the current moment for RDAP, but that's sort of the proposal on the floor. And that's something that we could have a draft to look at our next meeting.
Todd, when is the deadline that we're working with on this question?
I should know because I just wrote it down. Give me 1 second, Rebecca. I think it's January 15th.
I thought it was November.
Is it November?
And you know, actually, there's probably a deadline on the books.
January 15th.
I wonder, January 15th?
Yeah. 3 BSA 168 F6.
So I have some thoughts on this, but I don't want to, I really am curious to hear about it, the others here on this panel. I am very uncomfortable going forward with any suggestions as to what should be in our next report without key members here.
Yeah. If I can just add to that, Rebecca, I would say I think you flagging that arguably we have 2, if not 3 meetings between now and when the report has to be submitted. We do have more time than I had thought it was also December, and felt like there was a little bit of time pressure on this.
I'm
In
noting
fact,
that we're joined.
Sorry.
I was going to say, I'm noting that we're joined now by Sheila.
Okay.
Hey everybody, Sheila, she, her, panel member. Sorry to be late. I'll be off camera today. I just had a little bit of an emergency happen and I apologize. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Sheila. We were just talking about our biannual report and contemplating whether a decision on that needs to be made now, given that we don't have a significant portion of our group present today.
And I'm also happy to do a more, maybe with support of other folks who are more versed in the history of RDAP. If I can beg support from, I'm mostly looking at Derek, Rebecca, and Susanna to just look at I'm happy to go through the report, but just work with somebody to say, you know, these are the recommendations that rose to the top, and then I can present something a little bit more tangible in November for the group to really consider in this. Unless people feel like we should have a full report, and I want to leave the space open for that.
Lisa, I see you with a hand.
Thanks, Susanna. Yeah, I just want to comment that, and this is coming from the perspective that I haven't been on RDAP nearly as long as a lot of the folks that Todd just named. So I remember conversations with Aton on this panel about the kind of reasoning why resubmitting essentially the same report, why that was important to him. And while I don't disagree with him in theory, I don't think it would be wise to just resubmit the same report to make a statement. I think if we pull things out that we can really kind of highlight and uplift that are still relevant in conjunction with the things we want to see going forward, would be a much better approach to submitting this report. I just wanted to add those comments. Thank you.
I'm not sure where we are in the conversation, but based on Lisa's comment, I just wanted to comment that if we are trying to decide, do we make a whole new report reinvent the wheel? Do we utilize the report written before, or do we utilize the report, like Lisa said, and pull some things out? I would say yes and happy medium is why I think it's good to submit the report is because maybe different legislators haven't had their eyes on it, whether they were there or not. Another reason is to reiterate our stance and the need that these concerns or issues didn't go away. And as people have heard me speak before about data, I'm one of those people who is like, we keep on creating different sets of data, is what I consider these kind of things. And and then redoing these type of things. And so if people aren't aware or actually utilizing or actually looking at the documents that we've made, then there's chance to recreate that, and there's chance to look over that and not do the work from what was done. And then I also agree with Lisa, though, that we should pull out things from that report if there are things that stand out, or things that we feel like have shifted since we wrote that report that need to be reprioritized. Maybe certain things have happened, certain things haven't happened, but maybe there's certain things that we are seeing now that definitely need to be lifted up and prioritized. And I would say that we could add things to it. So if we're talking about what we should be doing for a report, I think that we should be utilizing that report that we're mentioning as our base, and then lifting up what the priorities are, kind of what Lisa's saying, and then add whatever we feel is needed to be added for the work that has happened since then that we feel like also needs to be prioritized.
Wow. So I'm appreciating the remarks we've heard so far. We're talking about reminding the legislature of what we've already recommended. Those ideas are still good and sound and valid, and likely most of them are still very relevant and doable. And I'm also hearing a desire to refresh and revisit that to make sure that they remain relevant, that if there are any surrounding conditions that have changed, that we're adapting to that. And I especially appreciate Sheila's point about there possibly being legislators who weren't aware of our previous work, considering how much turnover we've seen in the legislature this past session. So I think it sounds like we're coalescing around an idea that it does make sense to remind the body of the work we've done. And the question is how much newness or refresh needs to happen around it. But I also do want to still hold Rebecca's comment about how deep we get into this conversation or making decisions here without more non-state members of our group here. So I'd like to defer to you all on how we proceed, and what I'm going to recommend is along the lines of what Todd had said, which is to look to have this conversation at our next meeting. It doesn't seem as if so far, it doesn't seem as if the thread is taking us to, let's write a whole new report that needs to be researched, validated, etc. So I think he's right. I think we do have time if what we're doing is working with something that working from a base of work we've already begun or researched. So maybe we can give ourselves some homework in the interim. You'll see that Todd just put in the chat the link to our 2024 report. So perhaps as a follow-up from this meeting, do we all agree that we can invite ourselves and the rest of our RDAP colleagues to reread that report and then come prepared at the next meeting to discuss what we think either needs to be elevated or modified or otherwise dealt with? Rebecca, I see you with a hand.
I support that and all the suggestions made by others. I would add that we should read the other reports, because I don't know how many we have done, but not only is it a great review for everyone on the panel, but we can also see we have diligently made recommendations year in and year out. Some have, well, maybe one has been adopted. And so anyways, worthwhile to not just limit ourselves to last year's report.
Very fair. Rebecca, I recall a sort of ad hoc subcommittee of you, me, and Jessica Brown weeding through past reports of this group and related reports and creating a summary document for this group.
You know, that sounds very familiar. I'll go back and see if I can find our notes on that and what we've done. And we'll share that so that other panel members can see that.
I'm also curious, I can't remember what's on the rest of the agenda, but I'm wondering if there is still time within this meeting, if we can actually start that conversation. I think that state people or other people who are not here can read some minutes, and they can also reflect and chime in from some of the things. And it could also give us ways of thinking about things when we're hearing other people speak. So if the agenda, if we have other stuff that's more pressing and needs our time, great. But if we have space today, I would even encourage us just to start with what's on people's minds, so we can start those conversations to allow more space for our next meeting to be able to have more people speak and make decisions.
On the logistical part of your question, the rest of our agenda, I think, allows us plenty of time for that, or for expanded discussion. I'll defer to the group on how we want to proceed. Maybe we can tack that on to the end, and so we can get through the items we've got listed and then come back to it.
I mean, that's totally doable for me.
Okay. All right, so let's proceed and then loop back to that if time allows. Next item we have is the results of our meeting survey and a discussion about the potential for an in-person RDAP meeting.
So very quickly and without any real statistical detail, which I apologize to all the statisticians and data-heavy people on this call. These are results of our survey. I will say there is pretty strong interest in meeting in person, though there are 2 no's. One of those no's, I think, was a mistake, just given the other answers that that individual gave in terms of their ability and interest in meeting at other times. So I think there's pretty strong interest in meeting in person. And I will say again, we'd make any meeting that we had in person hybrid for those individuals who either couldn't make it or because of heavy workloads weren't able to be there in person. There's pretty strong availability for the 18th. And so without delving into the spring, I would suggest that we try and meet in person on the 18th. Again, not a particularly heavy statistical analysis, but in looking at these first 3, Northwestern Vermont, Central Vermont, and Eastern Vermont, all of those were top 3 choices for about 3/4 of the panel. So we would look, I would suggest we look in Central and Eastern Vermont just to split the drive for folks who are in Southwestern Vermont, as opposed to going all the way up to Chittenden County, which I think would be quite a haul. So just pausing there for a minute, Susanna, what I would suggest to the group is I will take on trying to schedule a space, some kind of public space, a library, a town office, or something like that, an open public space that doesn't have security and the like, but it would be available for us to use on the 18th, somewhere between Randolph and, say, Heartland or something like that, to try and provide an opportunity for folks to get there. We did look at the Hartford town office, which I understand we've used in the past, and unfortunately it's busy on the 18th of November. They didn't have availability that day. So what I would suggest to the group is that I will try and get back to folks, the panel, within the next week to 10 days before the end of the month so people can make plans with a location. And again, making it hybrid, especially so that members of the public can more easily attend if they're interested in attending as well. I don't know as we need to have a motion or anything like that, but however you think it should roll forward. And then I'm happy to talk a little bit more. I guess the only other thing is timing. It seems pretty clear folks are happier with an earlier meeting start time. And so I think we can move forward with that regardless of the location of the meeting. But that's sort of the results here and my recommendation on an in-person meeting.
Thanks, Todd. I'll also note in the chat, we got at least one idea for location. If others on the call have ideas for places that could be good venues, please feel free to put those in the chat to give us a lead. Any thoughts on the results that we just saw? Does anyone have extremely strong feelings about any of what we've seen? And by that, I mean, you know, the top 3 preferred times, dates, locations for people are absolutely horrible, and what we need to do is go and have this meeting in New Hampshire or whatever. Does anybody have thoughts or issues about any of the results, or are we greenlighting Todd to move forward based on the information he's received in the form?
I'm good. Thumbs up.
Go ahead, Todd.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Todd, for taking on the logistics of that. If I'm doing my part, then I'll bring snacks whenever and wherever we decide to do it. I want you people in a good mood. Okay, it looks like we are.
I was just going to say, Sheila had such great food options at the last, that she was talking about the last meeting. I thought maybe she was going to bring some of the good stuff up for Brattleboro. Not volunteering her.
You know what? And I was going to volunteer you, Todd, to find a BIPOC-owned business in the area that we'll be meeting in for you to cater for our meeting for everyone.
I like that. I will take that on. I don't know if I've got a budget to cater, Sheila, but I will take on finding it.
All right.
Our office has done events around the state. We always try to use we always try to be really intentional and inclusive with our catering selections, so we can assist. Okay, it looks like we are up to public comment now. So if there's anybody who's not a member of the panel who would like to address the panel, please feel free to do so now. We're watching the chat. If you'd rather do that in chat, or if you'd like to unmute, then please do so. I have waited the requisite number of seconds in discomfort. If you are on the call and you are typing and we just interrupted you mid-sentence, we are still watching the chat, so please don't be shy. But otherwise, oh, look, a chat came through. You see, I needed to just wait. Okay. Felicia has asked, what is the overall mission of this group? And I'm so glad you asked that, because I just copy and pasted it from another email. What I'm going to do, Felicia, is actually just read to you from the statute that created this group. So this group was created by Act 54, which was passed in 2017. And part of that law states that this panel's purpose is, and I quote, to review and provide recommendations to address systemic racial disparities in statewide systems of criminal and juvenile justice. there's more to say, but that's what's written on paper. I would invite any of our other members of the panel to add dimension to what I've just said here. Okay. How is the group going to be impacted by the actions of the current administration regarding issues such as diversity, equity, and inclusion? And by current administration, I'm gonna assume that you mean federal. Yes, okay. Yeah, I don't want to do all the talking here, but I guess I'll add one piece, which is I think that how we're going to be affected is partly in our hands and largely not. I think that the support and protection from our legislature and our other electeds around the state is going to dictate a lot of how we're impacted, and what they choose to do in response to what we're seeing out of the White House. But I think in general, this group is a collection of state actors and non-state actors. So we've got some who are here, members of not-for-profit organizations, community-based organizations, some who are here from prosecutors' offices, defenders' offices, people who, like me, are like, just schedule a lot of meetings and send emails. And so I think the impacts of the different member groups may vary. But hopefully this group as a collective can have some kind of continuity. But again, I'd love to just be quiet and hear from other people's thoughts.
Mark.
No other panel members want to jump in on that one? Mark, I see you with the hands. Oh.
I'm happy to jump in. I just didn't want to jump ahead of Reverend Hughes. But very quickly, I would also say the purpose of RDAP is as an advisory panel. So contrary to what a lot of the federal actions are, which attack policy, we really, I think RDAP sits in a place of observing, monitoring, bearing witness, and then recommending and advocating for action, both on a capital P policy legislative level and then on a small, I don't know what the capitalization means in this case, but on a policy level with the various constituent groups that are represented on RDAP and beyond that in state government more broadly.
Thanks, Todd. Judge Tebow, did you have something on this topic or a different one?
I think just an important thing to remind, especially for people who are not as familiar with Vermont's system or how criminal justice or juvenile justice work, these are systems that are based largely upon state law. While there's some broader constitutional protections that come from the federal government, how we sentence, what factors are relevant to case dispositions, and ultimately the breadth of how we apply criminal and juvenile justice to citizens of Vermont or people who are within the justice system here is largely within state control. So in that sense, the work of RDAP, at least in my view, I think can speak to those things that are well within the control of the legislature and the governor, and then ultimately implemented in part or have people like me in the judiciary as part of that. So I think that irrespective of what administration there is in DC, we have a substantial or almost total control over the broad brushstrokes of what we do with our system. So that underscores the importance of doing quality work to inform the best decision making possible here in the state of Vermont.
Thank you. Mark, I see you with a hand.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this body is going to make any recommendations to the legislature, kind of out of cycle. I hear Judge Tebow, and congratulations, Judge. It's been a while. It's been a long time since I've seen you, all the way back in our Cabot days. I'm wondering, based upon number one, what feels like, well, what is some serious challenges with the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division being decommissioned, gutted, politically repurposed. And also, there's quite a bit of concern about Homeland Security Task Force, that's DEA, FBI, ATF, U.S. Marshals, ICE, their presence here in the state, and as well as what feels like unchallenged executive orders that are directing military equipment into law enforcement agencies and providing law enforcement legal protection and quote indemnification, placing Black and brown and other folks in marginalized communities at extreme risk, while at the same time shielding law enforcement from accountability. I'm just wondering, at a minimum, shouldn't we be calling for some transparency and accountability in those areas? The civil rights piece is broader, it's larger. There's a lot more discussion to go into that, but personally, my personal opinion, I just think the legislature needs to be back in, and maybe the governor needs to be kicking out a couple of executive orders, maybe. But I'm just wondering if there's any discussion amongst you to where there might be some recommendations, not in a report, but just in a memo, asking for, let me be specific. I'm looking for some language right now. Establish transparency and accountability on state policies for military equipment transfers to Vermont police, number one. Number two would be establish transparency and accountability on state communication and operational protocols with Homeland Security, the task force. Because I'm thinking at this point, and I've exchanged emails with Jen already on this, and it's just been processing it. But I think at a minimum, we may not want to call for the state to say not cooperate with Homeland Security Task Force or not accept transfers of military equipment, because there's always an exception as soon as you say that. But we should at least have visibility into when these things transpire and understand the circumstances under which they do, the protocols, very much like the fair and impartial policing policy with 287G. I think with the Homeland Security Task Force, essentially by nature, it all but circumvents the fair and impartial policing policy, because there's 4 additional agencies, federal law enforcement agencies, that can be collaborated with in that same office. And they could technically, ICE, not collaborate with law enforcement agencies while the other 4 agencies are. And oh, by the way, we don't know who's under the mask anyway. But just to keep it, I'll just keep it short here. So let's just talk about those 2 policies, just for transparency and accountability, to give us some idea of if and when and how and under what circumstances our law enforcement agencies, particularly the state police in this case, because I think the mayors and town managers have their own responsibilities to some extent, that they're accepting equipment and or collaborating and corroborating with the Homeland Security Task Force. That would be Executive Order 14288 and 14159. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Any feedback or response
wait.
from members of the RDAP? Again, you all aren't obligated to reply to public comment, but I think we like to keep it a little bit conversational in this group. And I'm seeing a request in chat. Mark, if you're willing and able, if you could put the numbers of those executive orders in chat.
Sure, I'll be happy to.
Great. Thanks for joining, Brianna. Members of the panel, anything on the comments we've just heard, or any other members of the public who'd like to, oh, Rebecca, please go ahead.
So I really appreciate these comments from both Mark and Felicia. They're the obvious ones in a way and the most important ones that are facing us broadly. And I think impact our each piece of our agenda really, and what we're thinking about how we're going to be impacted with what's going on in current events. To answer or provide an answer to the what I think is the easiest answer, which is, can we write a memorandum out of time or in addition to our reporting requirements? My memory is, I think we have done it in the past. I certainly don't see any reason why we couldn't. It's not prohibited in our enabling statute, right? I think it's just setting forth the report. It might just be that our January report deadline may intersect with the time that we would need to consider those suggestions that you made, Mark, tonight. I, as a panel member, would love to see those specific recommendations considered by us at our next meeting or tonight. I think getting to and reacting to the substance of the suggestions absolutely critical. If I understand what the recommendation to be, it's about urging transparency and accountability on our state's cooperation on law enforcement efforts, specifically in the context of military equipment and task force for law enforcement. I think that is absolutely in sync with our recommendations in the past, so it seems to fit right in. I would make, to the extent that we need some formal process, or as a panel member, I would support adding to our list of recommendations for our January report.
Thanks, Rebecca. All right. Well, friends, we are almost at the close of the listed items we had on our agenda. I did just want to, I know a lot of us have been made aware of some changes that have been happening related to some relevant positions in state government related to law enforcement and some of the work that this panel focuses on. And I think that it would be appropriate to give the members an opportunity to discuss and figure out whether and how any of this fits into the context of our work, whether we're talking about our reporting, our membership, our focus areas, etc. So if folks would like to have kind of a free-form discussion, then I would welcome it, although I will, well, yeah, let me just start with that. How are we feeling?
I would appreciate a motion to go into executive session.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of moving into executive session to discuss personnel matters? Aye. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed on the panel? Okay, we'll do that. I do want to acknowledge that right as we're doing that, we did get a response in the chat from Mark. So it would be helpful for members to take a quick look at that. And I'm sorry, I think I didn't do this very skillfully because I have to figure out the logistics of how we're going to move into executive session. I think if we have no other business, then we can't, how does that work? Should we do a breakout room? I'm so sorry, I should have figured this out before we took a vote. Todd, you have a breakout room for us?
I'm working on it.
Or the answers? Okay.
I just want to echo what Mark said. I can also just drop off if there's no other agenda items.
I hope everybody has a great evening. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks for being here.
Just want to reiterate the last point that I just dropped in the chat. Please take a look at that.
I think for point of order purposes, insofar as if I'm correct, meetings of the RDAP are subject to open meeting law. I think we're still best served going into executive session rather than just logistically defaulting to the fact that only RDAP members happen to be visible and known to be attending this meeting.
Agreed.
I agree. Thank you, Derek.
So I won't pretend to be good at Zooming, but I think I created, hopefully if I click this, folks will have, the members of RDAP will have the opportunity to go in. The one question I had, Susanna, is if there is interest in discussing the report, it may make sense to put that before this, but I leave that totally up to you as opposed to coming out of executive session and into it, but totally your call.
Yeah, I think I'll be dictatorial on this one only because I think that gingerly dictatorial, because I think the discussion about the report, I imagine it may end up being a little unstructured necessarily because we don't necessarily have a desired outcome.
Yep.
So I think I'd like to move to this one, and then we can still have a discussion on our report at the next meeting. Sheila, would that be okay with you?
Totally fine.
Okay, thank you for that flexibility.
That sounds great. I'm going to click this button and it's a great break. I'm going to hit the open all rooms and hopefully that'll invite everybody to a breakout room, and then we can come back to this room theoretically and close the meeting so that Orca's got that record. So
Thank you, Todd.
let's see what happens.
We believe in you.